Ugh. Okay, that's ahead. Thank you for moving this chair. It's reading my mind here. Students are starting to get used to me. The question posed to me yesterday was, am I going to keep going? As long as I breathe, I will continue to teach. I am absolutely thrilled to have this particular slot of time, and we'll probably allocate it to do more, seeing as our current project, it looks like we're going to work in Python. So,
for the brand team?
Yes. Lots of engineering going on, so and I'm about to show you, I am now running in Python 3.3 for demos and other things. So definitely finally working in the environment I want to be working in. And I also have...
I mean, we should update our Python.
I also have the current beta of Django 1.6 running, which I'm still debating whether I'm going to run in the near future or not. But at the moment, I'm definitely running as high a version as I can do. There is a Django 1.7 available, but that's super alpha, so I probably wouldn't recommend it. Here, you can snack.
Oh, that's fine.
Oh, no, all right. So, good. And questions about this would be, what's different? My answer would be, read the patch notes. It's very detailed. There's a lot of things that are different, including how save works physically to the database. So definitely worth a read. As far as this demonstration, 1.5, 1.6, same. It has the new folder structures, so you should be good to go. The one difference is if you're running 1.5 and you try and do this lovely stuff, you have to uncomment the admin. Remember I talked about that in the settings. There's an admin and you have to uncomment it. Well, in 1.6 it comes uncommented. Duh. So it gives you one less thing to do in your setup process. So what I'm going to try and do right now is do this. Front to back, we're going to type these things in and we're going to watch our server manifest. Then we're going to make a model and I'm going to attach the admin to it. And you can see the admin working. I then am going to leave that part to you, and we're going to go on to the next piece, which is testing and how testing works under Django. I'm going to show you a basic unit test and how that works, and we're going to discuss that front to back. Previous classes, I talked about models and how models save information and views, how views pull in those models, look through templates and all of that. Are there any questions about that? And I don't believe you if you have no questions. Whispered questions. Just ask. Anybody? Bueller? At least one of them got it. Yeah. I've been told my jokes are dated. I'll have to work on that. Okay, so with no further ado then, I'll be making a class as we go, so if you don't understand models, now's your time to be all like, wow, okay, what is that? But hopefully you understand. We've been doing this long enough now. And here I sit, and I'm going to make sure I can see everything properly. Yeah, looks pretty good to me. So as per what I sent you, we are going to start from a prompt. I'm going to go ahead and use my temp folder as I always love to do, which is probably not a great thing. It's getting a little full there, isn't it? So let's go ahead and let's okay, so I'm just in an empty folder here. So any empty folder will do. What we're going to do is run the Django admin, start project, and then we're going to give it a project name. I use the words random stuff in my demo. Somebody from the audience, this is like the Whose Line Is It Anyway, where they ask you to throw out a word. So, Fred.
Pretzel.
Pretzel. Oh, I like that. Pretzel wins.
Can't be Fred Pretzel.
Make sure you keep track of the points. The points don't matter, but we'll sum them up at the end. Pretzel, I think I spelled it right. Didn't I spell it right? Okay. There we go. And First off, let's have a look and see what we did. Right, start project creates a project folder called pretzel. Now, what's inside that? Can anybody answer?
Use.
Okay, how about first level in? What was your answer?
Model will be the first level. And I don't remember.
Okay, here we go. This is the root of your project. I was asking what goes in this folder. Drum roll. Right. Oh, you knew that, right? I knew that. What are you talking about? Now, it also contains the folder pretzel, right? What goes in pretzel is the guts of the application itself. So your main URLs .py is here. WSGI is how Python connects to HTTP calls. And settings.py is how we configure Django. That all goes in your applications. I'm sorry, in your project's application folder.
Why do you get a manage that pie in the top level? Is that so you can add to it?
Yes, what we're going to do now is we're going to create an application to work with within our Django framework. This is definitely a change in structure from 1.4 and before. So the idea now is as a pattern to have the project's name as a folder and then the project relevant executable files in there. WSGI, settings.py, all that's required in order to run each of the pieces of the Django framework. So if I do run server here, we're super happy and friendly. Nothing's required other than running the start project. Once you've run start project, you're good to go. Okay, but we don't have a view or any of the rest of that stuff, so we'll need a view of something. So what are we dealing with in our pretzel application? We need manage.py start app. Random something here. Mustard. Yeah, at least we're following the theme there, okay? So now we look in the same folder. We have our manage, which runs our application, and pretzel, which is our application. And now we have an application within that called mustard. Now, what's in mustard? Here's what you were looking for. Your models, your views, your admin for this app or sub-app, depending on how you want to call it. It will be called an installed app. And installed apps are maintained in your, anybody? Installed apps, it's a constant.
Model.
I love your guessing.
It's not accurate though.
I like it though.
Better than not guessing.
The answer was right there. If you had looked fast enough, you would have seen. I'm just trying to get back to my temp folder. What did I call it? A folder name. Yeah, gotta love it. Pretzel. Right? Pretzel is our application. Settings is our application settings. So in here, we have a list of installed apps. In fact, I clicked right to it. These are by default. I've not touched this file in any way, shape, or form. This is what Django comes with. These are the default installed applications for things like the admin and authentication and maintaining a session and everything you'd need in order to run a web service properly. Now what I'm going to do is add on top of that, what did we create? We created mustard. Mustard. So I'm going to add and now I'll do That's what I was afraid of. It's just looking for it off the root. Sorry about that. There we go, happiness. Okay, so I've referenced our mustard application from our installed apps in our settings.py, right? Settings. Okay, now that we have that in there, it shows up, and we could cause it into existence. No idea who you are, nor am I going to answer my phone right now, and I apologize deeply to everyone. If you'll give me a moment, I will silence it and cause that not to happen again. Thank you. All right. So I've added it to my installed apps. Now I don't have a URL to look at it with yet, but it does have models. We saw that earlier. I'll go ahead and show you again. It comes with models.py. Comes with by default. So let's go ahead and open that and look inside that models.py.
So applications always belong to a project? You
Ta-da!
don't have an application without a project?
Yes,
Okay.
because the project establishes your manage, and your manage is the framework.
Okay.
Okay, so models.py, we have an empty models file. I was not explicit in what I told you. Yeah, add a model class. I called it fun class. So we get to decide what we're going to call it. I think I have Notepad++ here. Class. Fun name for a class. Funky. Models.model. What do we do? Always, you put your doc string. And always end with a period as well. Please stick to the code. Stick to the code. Max length equals 200. Actually, let's make it something fun. And always a blank line on the end, saving. So, any questions?
Why do you want to set the maximum length of the character?
Yes.
Char field, that's a required setting.
Is it possible to do it unlimited?
That would be a text field, not a char field. Text fields are the equivalent to a memo field in an HTML form.
Yeah.
Text area, HTML text area. Anybody? Anyway, so input forms, right? Char field is the equivalent to I need 15 bytes of information. So that's why I'm using this. That's going to be part of what you need to basically commit to memory. There's probably 25 basic fields for you to memorize. You should probably get on that and start dealing with that.
And it came from your experience, how you know that it's going to be 15 or not 20, not 50, not 100?
Outstanding question, you get an A. The answer is you do your homework before you make your schemas. And you need to really know what that number is before you make your models. Now, that requires architecture up front. And you're all like, wow, that's not very flexible. My answer is South. South is an add-on module for Django that allows for migrations. Migrations allow you to change your schema after you have instantiated it in the database. So a database is a bunch of Excel spreadsheets with static information. Each one of those columns has a specific name and type and how many characters it supports. The database defines that, and it's semi-universal. MySQL, same thing as Postgres, same thing as NoSQL, as far as the data types that go in there. Charfield is one of those, and many, many times I will have gotten the max length incorrect. And instead of having to nuke the database, I use south as a tool and migrate the tables over to the new values. But does not leave any room for not doing your homework up front. You should get these values right out of the starting gate. And if you don't know what they are, you can take a wag, wild ass guess, but ideally you've done your homework and you've done the math and you know what's going to have to go there. An email field, right? How do I know how long an email field is, right?
Is there any way dynamically increase or decrease the size of it?
You just pick the right data type. So we can go into these. I wasn't intending on covering that as much as we have, but we can do more model field types if you'd like.
Is there any way dynamically increase that size?
Dynamically increase the size of a database storage field.
Like where in database side?
As I said, a memo field, a text field is infinite in size.
Okay.
So you just use the right tool for the right job. So I don't believe there are any parameters required with that, but that particular thing, that'll store as much as you want to shove in it. However, comma, your row is then heavy. And heavy rows make for big databases make for slow searches, and maybe not so good model for, design pattern as far as what you're storing. Most of the time in a database, unless you're taking user, like a blog, right? Somebody's posting random information regularly and you're not sure how big that's going to be, you should be able to regulate that data storage pretty tightly. But, and now we're off on a tangent, so I'm going to go ahead and go there anyway. Come on, wireless, not working, I bet. I bet I'm not connected. Yep. Don't look, world. There we go. No. Here we go. So I believe I discussed this previously, but we'll go ahead and do it right now. There we go. We'll start with the top second. Auto field, big integer, boolean, char field, date field, decimal field, email field, file field, float field, integer field, IP address field, null boolean. This is very interesting. It actually stores null, 0, and 1. So it's not really a boolean, it's a tri-state boolean, but now as of Django 1.7, all fields will be null boolean fields. Very interesting database storage pattern. Floats, don't use floats. Image, integers.
Slug field.
Positive, yeah, slug fields, small integer fields, URL fields, time fields, and relationships. We're going to do relationships next week. This is not relationship week. Next week is relationship week. I'm already off topic, you silly people. Foreign keys are relationships, many-to-many field, and one-to-one fields. So those are foreign key relationships, and we'll deal with that next week. So yes, use the right field type for the right thing, whatever you're doing. And then on top of that, each field has the ability to be null is true, blank is true, choices as if there are several things to choose from to enter a particular text field. You can actually set those choices. It'll be a nice drop-down box. All these kinds of different things. We'll talk more about that as we move ahead in creating more models. But right this second, I just wanted one field, so we can just talk about one field for the moment. We have one field in our model, funky. Now that we've saved that model, what do we need to do? Euler?
Add it to the URL. Attached to a view.
How about instantiated?
Sure.
Okay, so I ran the syncdb. I agree with you, Ben. That's why I'm laughing. And it creates the tables in my database. Now, by default, what database do you get with any Django installation?
SQLite.
SQLite. At least one of you's paying attention. SQLite. What's the best database to use? Whatever one you want. That's why Django kicks ass. Okay, and I personally like PostgreSQL a lot because it's super Django friendly and happy. But MySQL is clouded more extensively than any other database. And from your programming point of view, you don't care. It's really more or less the same. So anyway, moving right along, it makes all these for authentication, user sessions. These are all by default. Now look at here. Right? So we made this. I made this. Right? Let's do it. All right. So
I'm getting an error message when I do the syncdb thing. It says manage.py is not recognized as an internal arch. Oh, no, never mind. Oh, the other one I got was improperly configured. Settings.databases is improperly configured. Please supply the engine value.
yes. Yes. Set it. You need to edit your settings file and include SQLite as the proper engine, which I believe they do by default.
I would think so too.
No. In this version, I'm running in a newer version than you are. Yeah, here it is. It needs to look like this.
Databases. Where is that?
I'll get back to you.
Okay, there we go.
So I'll leave it open there for you. Right now that I did syncdb, it's asking me to create a super user, right? Because I'm starting a new app. It's created a new database, new tables, and now I am entering a user to go into that application. That's my username. Password. Da, 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 da. So now our tables exist. We could actually run the app. Run server. And then it is 127.0.0.1. And yay. Now, we can't see our tables yet, which is what we're trying to do. So I'm trying to get into the admin, which is running, but we still don't see our tables. I need my tables. Where are my tables? Answer. They are in your admin.py. Now, here we are in our pretzel app. Here we are in our mustard app within pretzel. Here's where we made our model, right? We put it in there, and then we did syncdb, and that caused it into existence. Now, what I want to do now is I want to see it. So I'm going to go into the admin. Here we are nicely. And I believe I wrote it down to make it even easier. Yes, see, I wrote it right here. Super easy to deal with. Import your class. Whoa. Just proving to you I actually put it in your stuff. Import your class and register it. So we're going to go from mustard models, import
Funky?
funky, yeah, boy, got me going. Admin site register funky. New line on the end. The admin site, the site has restarted itself nicely. Huh?
Sweet.
Huh?
I don't have an admin.
Now we drill. Did you uncomment it as well? in your settings.py, there are
my
two
settings.
commented
Right,
lines. You'll need
okay,
to take that
because
out.
they're no
In your
longer
urls.py, there's one commented line. You'll need to take that out as well. It's good practice for you anyway. Learning how to do that is good. There is a higher chance you'll be working in Django 1.4 than in 1.5 or 1.6 or 1.7 at this point. So here we are. Yay! We got a funky. We're going to add a funky. My funky name goes here. Oh, why can't I type anymore? Yes. How hard is it to freaking do that in the web form? It's really a pain, right? You have to pass in the right stuff and make sure it's all managed on the way in and out of your view. Or you can use the Django admin, which does it for you automatically on the fly with no additional help. And that's true of every kind of field there is. So I'm going to click Save. There's a funky object. It doesn't know what it is, so it's just saying, I'm an object here. We click it. We see the field inside that. We could delete that field. It would delete funky object for us. It gives us a nice confirmation too. I'm not going to delete it. I did add it to the database, and you can see its ID number up there. There you go, right there, funky1. Right, 1 is its primary key ID, which happens on the fly. And I'm going to prove that to you right this second because we are right on schedule. I'm super pleased. So now I have empowered you to use the Django admin if it runs. Ben Parisi, sorry about that. But I have sent you specific instructions. If you follow these instructions, it will run. And with that, you can create your own classes, which will show nicely in the Django admin. Does the Django admin do more? A lot more. But we'll get to that one thing at a time. I think I've taken you far enough in the Django admin, at least for the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch slightly, and we're going to talk about testing and how testing works in Django. Because if we cover the admin, which I just did, and if we cover testing with that, you're pretty empowered to do just about everything at this point because we've covered models, views, and tests. What else is there? The admin. We just covered that. So this is test.py, and test.py is one way of writing tests. Put all your tests in one location and have them run from there. I've already discussed this previously in a Python testing lecture. And what was my method for testing Python files?
Unit test.
Okay, yes, your unit test would go in this test.py in this design pattern. Typically for me, I create a test file for each independent file. So I'd have a views test, a models test, and an admin test. Now, the current pattern out of the box for Django is to have all your tests run from one location. But if we look at some of my projects, let's see if I can pull one that's really easy to look at. Where's Git? Oh, it's under my username, sorry. Here, Git. There's some Git. And let's look at my sort module. This is the design pattern I maintain, which is each file that I enter into, gosh, that's blurry. Each file that I enter into the system has a matching test to go with it. So I wrote this, I wrote that, I wrote that, I wrote that. I know I did because I'm the only person in the entire company who uses this design pattern, but I'm also the only person who produces 100% coverage out of the box. So this is how I do it. Now, do you have to do it that way? No. You can also separate them into folders, or you can put them all in one place. Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. As long as the tests exist, that's what's good. For me, I write a lot of tests. That probably represents 200 plus tests running in that folder. And to have all of those in one file is insanity. So I definitely don't do it that way. So let's go ahead and look at the tests that I suggested for our tests module. Open tests. It's really simple. I wrote one for you, so I didn't have to spend time writing it in it right now. Da, 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 da. We called it something else, though. We called it funky. And our application name is pretzel. Gosh, I love these names. This is really cool. I like using random names because you shouldn't be attached to said things.
Sure.
Okay, I think that's right.
Is there an indent level problem?
Yeah, this is all tweaked. It's because I copied it out of that silly email. There we go, and we need this to be bingo, bingo. And I believe that should run. Let's go ahead and look. No module name. It's mustard, not pretzel. You're supposed to be keeping me honest here, people. There we go. Okay, so yeah, really cool. Django on the fly causes a database into existence. So this is our test file. I'm supposed to have 2 lines above this class. Sorry about that. But we import our model funky. Everybody gets importing a model at this point, I hope. But the difference between importing a model here and doing it in a view, if you're doing it in a view, you're using settings.py to determine what your database is. So it's always pulling from that persistent MySQL database. Now here in a test, what happens is, not failed, here we go, manage.py test. And this is the Python 3.3 warning. We don't worry about that. Creating test database for alias default. So instead of using MySQL or anything else, it creates a database on the fly and then runs our tests. Test.py. So here's our tests. And we have, I'll go over these tests in a minute. The tests run, hang on, and they come back. Ran one test, which is test fun class contains. Okay, now look at this, destroying test database. So your test runs by creating a database, puts what it needs in there through fixtures, which we can talk about. And then once the tests have all run, it destroys that database again. So the next set of tests can run. All right, so let's talk about the content of this test that I put up here. We created a class with a single attribute, name, right? A char field, name. Okay, so here we are. Test fun class contains proper fields and order. So we create one. Test class, funky objects, create name, Michael Clark's class. Yay. Test class 2, funky objects, create name, Michael's other class. Assert true has attribute, test class, ID. So I validated that this instantiation of this model contains an ID field. Ooh, somebody's really watching. It's good. Where'd the ID field come from?
Automatic.
Ooh, the answer is automatic. Let's go ahead and look at this again. Okay, all there is in a name field. ID fields are created because a table must have a primary key. You do not need an ID field. You can use any field you want but there must be a primary key field designated. Now, if you don't designate a primary key field, an ID field is created automatically, and that is an auto increment field. It's an integer, and it starts at 1 and goes upward. Anyway, so I'm expecting an ID field, but it is not specifically cast. So it's really important to have a good unit test showing that that is there. If you don't do that, somebody changes it or whatever, it's not really there, it's not so good. Anyway, so here we go. ID, name. All I'm checking for is that it has that attribute, not what that attribute is. Assert equals, funky objects all count 2, right? I created 1, 2, so I should be able to count and see 2. Assert list equal. Now, I said I'm testing for order and is ordered by ID. So if I pull a values list by ID, I should get 1, 2. And lists are static. They don't miraculously change. So I put in a static list, 1, 2, and those two should match. And they do, so I know that it's ordered properly. Are there a bunch of other tests I could put in here? Oh yes, wow, holy cow, I sure could. But you need to ask, am I testing the framework here? Because these are all givens. Even ID, I know that's there. The framework is not going to fail to make that. But in my case, I really like to check the basics. Does it have these attributes? Because if somebody changes this to name 2, this test will fail. And that's good because you want to know that up front. So for me, I look at it, if I were changing this code, would I want this test to fail? And the answer is yes, I would want this to fail. If my model's changed, I want my basic model test to fail. Now, count, borderline, probably not going to actually include this test because that's testing that the framework is working properly. Not my job. My job is to test logic I introduce. I introduced name. I wrote name. Therefore, I have a test that I wrote name. I did not write count. Django wrote count. Jacob Kaplan Moss wrote count, not me. So this test probably out. Order maybe, because order can be changed. And if I was to change the order of a particular list, I would want my base model test to fail. So ordering maybe, and that's what this is. This is an ordering test. It's rather rudimentary, but it gets the job done. Yes.
What about ID? You said that that's automatically created if you don't specify primary key.
Sure.
So aren't you sort of testing the framework there too?
I completely agree with you. And as I said, it's kind of like ordering. You could create an ID field. You could create a
Primary key.
an X field and call it primary key. And then I'd probably want my test to fail, saying, hey, you've changed this. You need to make sure everywhere else in your code you're not referencing the field ID. So yes, I completely agree that I'm testing the framework, comma, only kind of, because if I created a field that would clash with that, that field would go away. So probably a good thing to test in this particular case. But apples, oranges, please keep it up.
Won't that name fail because it's more than 15 characters?
Aha, I don't test for that. Let's test for that. And no, not with this kind of injection. It would fail in a form injection, not here. Let's count this and make sure that you're right.
I'm confused. Didn't you set that database field to be maximum?
There we
15
go.
characters?
Well, let's pull this and see what happens here. I don't want to just talk off the cuff. Let's do it for real. Test class woo 2 name, and this should be equals probably. Let's go ahead and make this See, I wasn't kidding. I'm always dry. I hate repeating myself. If I have to repeat myself, even when I'm sitting here with you, I'm not going to do it. Style. I'm going to fix this because it's driving me nuts. Thank you. Oh, much better. This should actually help Docster.
Except all the Google convention.
I got it, campaign. Must. Okay. Inconsistent use of tabs and spaces. Whoa. That's right.
It doesn't allow tabs anymore.
This needs to go here. Where am I at? Line 18. What did I do wrong?
Oh,
You think it's tabbed? Is that what you're saying? Oh yeah, it's probably tabbed, huh? Stupid notepad. Yeah. So it had nothing to do with the other one. So it says they are equal. So even though I put my character limitation in there, the type of field in the database supported the additional data.
that's a little confusing.
I'm pretty sure name, I'm pretty sure we set name to 15, right?
It's truncated?
It's not truncating it, is the point.
So then we're not sure that only to the first 50 byte.
But I'm not pulling it from the database either. I bet it's truncated in the database. One moment. So we'd have to pull it back out in order to test for sure. So we have test class 2 equals funky objects get ID equals 2. That's better. Now we should fail. Now we should fail nicely. No? Really? So it's not truncating that? Of course, Doug, you're going to pull out something.
Oh, so we don't have to take any time on that. I was curious. I just thought you were actually saying
No, we're in Python 3.3. That doesn't work anymore. That's pretty funny. They make me type 2 extra things now. Boo. Yeah, it's not truncating it in the database, and that may be a matter of the test runner, but I'm not entirely sure. But I bet I can do this. So I bet it's max to name. And that's probably going to give me what I'm looking for. Yeah, it's not. It's a string object. I need to pull it off of the main class, so I give up.
isn't the mat length 15?
Yeah, I wanted it to fail,
Oh, I see.
but it's not failing because it's an instantiation of it, not the actual field itself. I need to do it off the uninstantiated model, which I could in theory, but yeah, beyond the scope. Trying too hard. 1:51, 9 minutes remain.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just don't want to pull off too much. Okay, really? All right. Well, so be it, Jedi. Those ran fine. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take it from the top, and we're going to make sure that I got over what I was looking for. Right? So we created a demo server, start project, we created our project. We called ours,
A funky project.
No.
Pretzel.
okay, pretzel. We changed into our pretzel directory and we ran manage.py syncdb. Gave us our initial stuff, allowed us to create a super user, right? So we have a login name for the admin. Now we ran the server and went into the admin, but we had no models to work with, right? So we came back out and we started an app. We called our app Mustard, right? Now we went into Mustard. We went into our settings and added Mustard to our installed apps, right? So this would be edit, pretzel setting. It's pretzel settings.py, right? And then in installed apps, we need to add our Mustard application. Now edit mustard models.py, and we added our own model class. We called our class Bone TV class. We added a single text field to that, cover more fields and fields types in the very near future. In there, we also went into our admin and we registered our class with it, and it just miraculously showed up in the admin for us. Super easy, takes only a few steps in order to get the basic framework set up and running. SyncDB is required to actually get the new tables into the database. So we ran our SyncDB, then after we did that, we ran our server, went to the admin, we can now see our thing, and we're all happy and ready to go. So from nothing to model with admin in 10 lines or less. Really simple, these opening steps. Now, I took you on a little bit of a ride today discussing how tests work. We went into our application. This is Mustard, right? So we went into Mustard, this test.py. We added these sets of tests. We've talked about ID and name, count, which is maybe, and order, which is, it's probably a good idea. And we ran this test by doing manage.py test that runs that test and any other test that you have inside your application. This is me running that manage.py test, creating test database, just creates it on the fly. You don't have to worry about any of that. Dot means one test, actually, interestingly enough. If you have 100 tests, this is going to be filled with dots. And when it's done, line says I ran however many tests in however much time, and OK. So over the course of the past few weeks, we've done everything. So you've gone from not knowing any Python to all the way up to being able to make Python Django applications, which is probably one of the hottest things available on the market right now. So in the coming weeks, we can take this more advanced, talk more about joins, which is what I want to do next week, foreign keys, many-to-many relationships, one-to-many relationships, and how to use the admin to represent those, because the admin will represent everything in a nice GUI, so you don't even have to learn HTML if you don't want to, but I probably recommend it. But at least you'll have that functionality going for you. I also wanted to mention, if you want to do a little research on cool things to do, Satchmo, S-A-T-C-H-M-O, is a shopping cart built on Django. So if you wanted to run your own e-commerce site, you install Python Django on a Linux instance, you put Satchmo in there, it's running on the web. You now have an open shopping site with built-in e-commerce and everything all ready to rock and roll. All done. This stack, probably using MySQL or something like that, takes you 5-10 minutes to set up and you're ready to go. So there are lots and lots and lots of people doing Python and Django. So there's tons of resources available. If you're a math whiz, NumPy, N-U-M-P-Y, big math library. There's also an R library and several other statistical analysis libraries. I know there are outer space libraries and all these kinds of crazy math things that I'm incapable of doing. So recognize it's a very science-oriented language. Many things available to you. Other questions? Okay, then that's enough for today. I'll see you again next week. We'll do joins. We'll do queries and joins. It's going to be good. Okay, thank you very much. Applause, applause.